Yo, man. All right. Another big week in ecom marketing and measurement. At least 3 big stories. And, we're probably going to touch on a few other topics that were popular from the Twitterverse. But the big one, I think, this week that everybody was talking about was the impact from Facebook Shops. So it started with this one tweet that went viral where somebody posted an image where they discovered that Facebook was offering discounts, and then a second tweet by David Herman at Herman Digital talking about how he was starting to see traffic divert away from brand website and it was impacting performance on site. So those were the 2 big things that at least I saw that went viral that people were really talking about. But yeah, let's sort of start with this topic. What are we starting to see from Facebook Shops? What did you see? And then I'll share a little bit about what I saw from brands who I talked to.
Yeah. So Facebook Shops, like web and shop optimization, it's something that we've been testing, and we did a split test, and we did find that, the web and shop optimization campaigns perform better than just web only. And so we've been scaling them. We've seen a lot of success with ASC and web and shop optimization, and also just regular sales campaigns as well. Man, I think I'm spending like $26,000 per day on a web and shop ASC campaign, just one campaign. And there's another one that's like 10,000. And so it's a significant portion of our spend. It's working for us. I think it does.
Why do you think it's working? Why do you think it's working for you?
Well, there's a few reasons. Facebook is, I think, favoring these campaigns. They in general have a significantly lower cost per click. And so you're saving on the volume of traffic that you can drive to your web or shop, right? And I'm very careful about how I phrase that, because that cost per click metric is defined of just engagement with the ad. It's not necessarily link clicks to your website. But it is lower. It's that much more engagement. I think the reason why, though, is also there's that coupon, the 20% off coupon or free shipping offer that is being tied to the products. It's enticing. People see that, they're clicking on it, they're engaging. Even if they don't go to the website, they are engaging with the website. With the ad, contributing to that lower cost per click. And for the people that would normally say get your regular ads, and they see a product, and let's say you have a $100 or more price point, getting that 20% off is now making that product even more in reach for those consumers. So someone that's been wanting your product that couldn't afford it, they see that 20% off, they're like, oh, amazing. And you stacked on top of any other discounts that you have, even better. And so I think that's contributing a lot to conversion rates. And so it's working. Now, I do understand the concern that brands have, right? What happens when this goes away? What is the value of these customers, right? Maybe I'm a little brand that's going after a certain quality of customers because I'm expecting lifetime value and I'm building my business off of LTV. You could be attracting terrible customers. And so that's going to hurt your LTV into the future, and your payback periods could be all out of whack now. And right now it's not evident, but in 3 months from now, right, the expected revenue and the revenue that you forecasted is not going to be there. And you're going to have to figure out why, we hit the acquisition targets. Why is the revenue not there? And it's probably because you acquired the wrong type of customer. So I totally understand the issue.
Are you worried about the inverse effect? So it's there's a bunch of people on the sidelines. They see that discount. Now it's time to purchase. But now there's a bunch of first-time visitors that see your price for the first time with the discount, and then it goes away. Are they now annoyed? Are they waiting for another discount to come, and therefore their purchase cycle actually gets longer? What's your sense on disc? And actually, let's just make sure we just share the information with everybody. What happened basically is that Facebook is the one who is giving the discount. So Facebook basically, even though they're not the retailer in this case, is acting like a retailer and basically giving a retailer discount on this item where the brand can opt out, but you're actually automatically opted in. And so a lot of brands didn't even know that this was happening, which is what caused confusion on Twitter, I think. And what I think more than anything, probably, I don't want to assume on anybody's behalf, but I think people were just irritated that they were not asked whether or not they wanted to participate. They were auto opted in and then you had to opt out, as I understand. And so, because like now it's like, hey, I can no longer control the pricing mechanics of my product if you're going to like do a bunch of things without me even understanding that they're happening. That's my sense of like what was like one of the bigger problems here, is that people felt that loss of control over pricing, which, you know, can be a sensitive thing for a lot of brands.
Yeah, that's accurate. And, you know, I think the important piece for anyone that's watching this is like, wait, well, what is that about opting out? You can absolutely opt out. It's under Commerce Manager settings and in offers, and you can opt out. You can select certain products to be removed, to be opted out. You can opt out for a specific period of time, or you can just opt out entirely as well. So I highly recommend that if you are concerned about this, you go check those settings out. I mean, you asked great questions. There is an inverse effect there where you are now, you know, outside of just like brand value and brand perception, but you could also just be increasing the purchase cycle for people that see that price point and are now going to hold off. It's also caused a lot of issues with customer service. Even on our site, we get customer service complaints where people are like, hey, they get ad A with the coupon offer, and for whatever reason, they don't buy, or they save it because they're at work or on their phone and they want to wait till they get their computer. And they go on our website and they're like, wait, where's that coupon at? You know, or they get a different ad that just doesn't have it. And then they're like messaging our customer service team and asking, you know, how they can get the 20% off. Customer service is like, what are you talking about? So that's happened a lot. I'm sure that's probably how a lot of brands found out about this as well, which goes to your point. It's the why some people are upset. You know, I think big picture, this is not going to go away. I think Meta could learn from, you know, better communication, but this going away as something of an approach or strategy, it's not going to happen. Meta's been talking about this feature and has actually, they tested this feature. I remember working on an account in my previous role that was an alpha partner for this feature, like more than a year ago. Yeah. And there was an article, I recall an article where, you know, some spokesperson at Meta said that they're deprecating it. They're not going to focus on shops anymore. This was like 4 or 5 months ago. And then now it's back, and it's back with a vengeance. I think what Meta sees in its future is the ability to have a closed loop ecosystem for measurement. It always goes back to measurement. I think they want that signal. They want to be able to maintain users in the platform. They want, you know, the time on platform to be optimizing increase, right? If you think about it, it's counterintuitive that Meta as a platform would want people to get an ad that then takes them off the website or off the app to go to a website, to maybe not come back to the app until later that day or tomorrow. And so this is a great way to keep people in the platform engaged, and they get all that signal. They get all the view content, the add to carts and the purchase events, all that signal is going in, which is good for the greater cause, right? Of us and this industry. We should want Meta to have more signal, because the more signal Meta has, maybe the closer we can get to 2018, 2019 ads before iOS 14. But I do empathize and I do understand the concern that brands have, at least for the lack of communication.
Here's my thesis, at least, on this whole thing. And I've believed this from the very start of like IG shops or Meta shops when it was first announced. I think that we end up in a tri-modal ecosystem. So today, our view of the ecosystem is basically you have Amazon and then you have your website. And Facebook is an engine to drive website purchases, but actually you have Amazon and your website. That's like most core e-com sort of thinking. And I think that everybody's going to have to reframe into a tri-modal ecosystem, which is Amazon, on-platform, and website. And on-platform looks more similar to the way you think about your retail strategy than it does to the strategy of your own website, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't invest in it, but it means that you need to actually think of, like, you have an Amazon strategy, right? and you are actually explicitly thinking about what is my Amazon strategy relative to my website strategy, my guess is 6 months from now, you have an Amazon or if not before, you have an Amazon strategy, you have a non-platform strategy, and you have a website strategy, and you're extremely intentional about how much you want to drive from each and why for whatever the goals of your brand are, right? So like for some people, by the way, I would not be surprised if there are brands that go full on platform only, just like there are brands that go full Amazon only, right? And I actually think that this is like the totally natural outcome and like very, very reasonable as like how this ecosystem evolves.
Yep. It's funny, like how much of this, you always see kind of this like symbiotic relationship between Meta and Shopify, for example. How does this impact Shopify's numbers, right? Harley just came out with that announcement you were telling me about earlier. Maybe you can provide some context there. What's going on with Shopify and all of the, BigCommerce and Magento and Salesforce? And what are your thoughts on how this could impact, that announcement and those figures in the future?
Totally. Yeah. And this is also the second topic we wanted to talk about. Harley announced this week that they worked with like a Big Four audit firm to actually audit like for like companies' conversion rates. So similar companies on Shopify versus Salesforce, Big C, Magento. And they saw up to a 36% increase in conversion rate relative to Salesforce Commerce, right? And I think the minimum lift was 18%, or minimum difference was 18%. So that's like like study, like methodology aside, those are big numbers, right? Like a 36% change in your conversion rate that's like a very big change in your business. So I think that just sort of to like close the loop on your question on how does that relate to their relationship with Facebook shops, I think personally, I've thought this for a little while, I think Shop Pay has to be available on the Facebook checkout as like in addition to MetaPay. And I think that gets everybody what they want. Shopify then gets to control the payment. Meta still gets to control every other part of the interaction. And because you're on property, they get all the signal back. And this is where the merchant strategy becomes a little bit difficult, but the merchant somehow needs to be able to get a little bit more data access than what Meta is currently giving them for the medium term. But I think that's how Shopify and Meta start to like become a little bit more aligned moving forward. Yeah.
That's so interesting that adding Shop Pay to the platform, I would imagine that would create the surge of opt-in and sort of usability and adoption from users. And that's what matters. If Instagram and Facebook users are not using the checkout or the shops, then it all falls apart. And it's why they're subsidizing these costs. It's why they're doing these promotions, because they're really trying super hard to get some of these users to like make their first purchase on shops, because their game plan is, okay, if they make that purchase and we lose 20% of that, and we have to eat the cost of that 20% sale. Ideally, this is now a customer that found how easy this process was, and they'll like buy again, and we get to see that signal. But I'm really intrigued by the idea of having that through Shop Pay, or having Shop Pay as part of that checkout experience as well. That is interesting. Whether or not that happens, I would place my bet that it doesn't happen.
Oh, wow, really? You don't think it happens?
I don't think it happens. I think
that's
Meta,
part of. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say really quickly, I think that's part of why Harley made the announcement about the 36% lift relative to other platforms. The number one thing he highlights is Shop Pay.
Mm.
And they now do the one-page checkout, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the game right now at Shopify is how do we get the checkout on platform?
Yeah. I would be surprised if I see it. There was it was either an alpha or a beta, Meta was exploring, and you'll see this on sites. So that's why I feel comfortable speaking about it. But go to a couple of websites, your favorite D2C brands, and you'll see a Meta Pay button.
Totally.
Meta checkout. and that was in an effort to have, again, that first party data and connectivity and, some more signal that feeds back into the whole shop experience. And I think that's still like something that they're pushing, and I don't know. That's competitive to what, Harley is offering here with Shop Pay. So they are at odds there. I would be surprised if Meta takes the backseat and says, you know what, we'll sunset Meta Pay and let's instead bring in Shop Pay into our platform. Win-win. You merchants now have, that data that flows into Shopify through a better process and integration. We get the signal, which is ultimately what we want for performance improvement to drive ad spend dollars, and they work together. But I'd be surprised. I mean, that would be a move where Meta would almost have to take a step back from what they've been building with this Meta Pay capability.
All right, man. We're going to put it on our calendars 6 months from now. If I'm right, you buy me a whiskey. If I'm right, I buy you a whiskey.
Using Shop Pay or Meta Pay. Perfect.
Oh, we are 100% going to support a D2C whiskey brand. That is for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
And if I win, I'll have to get you, you'll have to get me a whiskey with the brand that has Meta Pay. So you'll have to search far and wide to find a brand that sells whiskey and has Meta Pay on their website. Good luck.
Oh man. That's going to be funny. All right. Another big one. GA4 changes are going, or GA3 is going to be sunset July 1. Everybody's in the midst of doing the GA4 migration. Again, the Twitterverse is just, everybody's just complaining about the GA4 migration.
Every day.
So yeah, what has your experience been? And what are your hey, top 2 things I wish I knew before I started this?
My experience hasn't been bad in terms of migration. This is a 2-step question or answer. Step 1 is setting it up. It hasn't been bad. I use Elevar. I work with Elevar. They've been phenomenal in terms of, I think I signed an ad hoc sort of agreement with them for them to just help me set it up, audit it, QA it, make sure everything's good. Easy, amazing. Took it off my plate. There's also an integration as well, I believe, a 1-click setup with GA4 and Shopify. So setup wise, it's not bad. In terms of actually getting in there and pulling some meaningful insights, that's been an absolute nightmare. I've signed up to a bunch of webinars. Shout out to Andrew Foxlow. I think they had a GA4 webinar that I signed up for, but had to miss. And I need to go back and watch the replay. But I expect a lot of YouTube videos, YouTube hours coming up in my future, just catching up on how to navigate this thing, how to really set up a report. In my defense, I did set up some funnels and some different dashboards. And it's just a new UI. You just have to get really used to it. But when I was able to successfully set up a breakdown of just understanding by channel and by campaign, where my breakdown was across, page view content, add to cart, initiate, checkout, and purchase. As I broke down that funnel across campaigns, the layout of it was actually really, really helpful. And it was super fluid and very interactive, more than what I would normally get from just universal analytics. But setting it up was a pain. And so I think there's smarter ways of doing that. The one thing that I do want to call out, it's not just as simple as setting it up. I was very fortunate that my Google ad reps took a look and they called out that I needed to export and import all of my conversions into GA4 from Universal Analytics. So they sent me a step-by-step guide on how to do that. So if you have Google ads reps and you have already migrated over to GA4, have them take a look just to make sure, just because if people did what I did, I fear that there's going to be some issues and I set it up, everything's peachy. And then, the migration comes around and you are no longer tracking sales. So that would be my one word of caution is just check with your ad reps and just have them give it a glance and make sure that everything's buttoned up.
Okay. But it sounds like overall, actually, you think this is an upgrade to your dashboarding of your measurement, basically.
I don't want to use that word. I don't want to use that word of upgrade because I'm big on user experience and UI. I think the UI is nicer. The UX is absolutely terrible. It needs a lot of work. The UI is pretty. It's very modern, very fluid. It's interactive. It looks nicer. But if you actually try to go and use it, it falls apart very quickly. And you're like, what am I clicking on? What is this? Why did this filter come on? Is this a universal filter? Is this a filter just for this view? And it gets very messy very quickly. So, but I think that's user error on my side. There's a Google Ads rep, Ben, I can't remember his last name, but I think he got quoted. Ben Kruger, I want to say.
Yeah, Ben Kruger on Twitter. Yeah.
GA4 doesn't suck. You're just lazy, is what he said. And, as much of a hot take as that is, a spicy take, he might be onto something. I think there's a sense of instant gratification.
Lazy's the wrong word.
Lazy's
a big word.
Lazy's the wrong word for that. But marketers do have this sense of instant gratification, right? And we tend to be more tech savvy. We tend to lean into different tools. And so I think what's happened is we expected an out of the box experience. This does require work. This does require you to really know what you are trying to get out of the tool and build towards that. And so maybe not lazy is the right word, but I do think there is some truth in the statement that it's a good tool, but you do have to put in the effort to build it around your branding and use cases.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. All right. So hopefully we'll get to a place where you're able to better visualize what you're trying to visualize in GA4. In the meantime, there's another tweet that we saw today from Jay Dolwani. He used to be the former CMO at Wink. And I'm just going to read the tweet because it's really well said. Most marketers hit a ceiling after becoming head of growth. It has nothing to do with marketing ability. It's because they don't understand the fundamentals of finance, data, analytics, and strategy. As a result, they can't communicate effectively with the C-suite or board. So this one was this one I've been starting to see versions of this. So there's a colleague of Taylor Holiday also that said something similar where he was talking about the marriage of finance and marketing this week too. I don't know what it is in the water, but I think people are really starting to get turned on to the fact that measurement, targeting, marketing, finance, brand, performance, all of these things are no longer possible to keep separate. I'm curious how you've been thinking about this, how you've been talking about it internally, and what's your take on hey, if I'm a marketer and I'm starting to get I'm starting to get asks on the finance side, what do I start to do?
Yeah, so I agree. And just connecting it to measurement really quick, where the disconnect usually occurs for marketers is when you try to measure something, when you try to activate the campaign or a strategy or a tactic, if you don't have the proper measurement in place, it can get messy very, very quickly and not knowing what you're doing. But at the end of the day, regardless of the measurement tactic, going back to our first couple of episodes, whether it's attribution or conversion lift study or any of the other, range of measurement options, those are all just a proxy for your P&L. And so fundamentally, either you're really great at measurement and you've gotten through your experience, I wouldn't say lucky, but you've been able to use measurement as a proxy for P&L, or you actually understand your P&L, your profit and loss statements, and what, how your marketing efforts are contributing to your bottom line. We're able to speak to that. So that's been my general thesis. I think, for me, how I action this internally, one, before we had a CFO, I had a profit and loss sheet, and I built my own, and it just a Google document. And it was, here's how much money we made. Here's my ad spend broken apart by channel. Here are the salaries of the people that contributed to driving that revenue. Here are all the vendors, the contractors, the creative assets, everything that falls under your scope of money out, money that you spend to get that top line revenue. You add all that up. Even your COGS, your discounts, are you charging for shipping or are you providing free shipping? If you're providing free shipping, that's an expense because someone's got to pay for that shipping. And you put all those things and you build out a contribution margin. And when I was originally doing this, I was actually doing it off of EBITDA. EBITDA and profitability was incredibly important to me. We brought in a CFO and we have weekly FP&A calls, which FP&A is financial planning and analysis. So during those calls, I provide an update. Here's where we're trending. Here's the forecast. Here's how we're pacing towards those numbers. Here's the breakdown of everything. We measure that against inventory and we basically take a look at where our cash is going, how much cash we're bringing in, how much money do we have to play with for inventory and additional expenses, et cetera, et cetera. And there was this big push on his end too. No, Bryan, don't look at EBITDA because you have no control over OpEx, and you need to look at contribution margin, contribution dollars instead. So I was like, okay. So I, removed OpEx out of that equation for EBITDA. And what you're left with is your contribution margin dollars. And that's what really just where we make all of our decisions. We still use measurement. We still use all the fancy bells and whistles of measurement. But at the end of the day, when we have our actuals, we look back at the last month, look at April, and I see how much top line and a breakdown of all the expenses. And I like to do it as a percentage of overall as well, because it's super helpful because you can see that percentage increase or decrease. And you can see how that affects that bottom line percentage of contribution margin or dollars. And so let's say, we spent 10% of our top line revenue into creative, right? And then suddenly our margin increased a little bit. Wait a second, we're onto something here. Maybe we should invest more in creative, right? And just keep moving that number up from 20 to 21, 22, 25%, 30%. And how's that affecting that contribution margin? Is that margin getting bigger and bigger because you're driving more top line? Or because of that expense that's growing, is that eating into the margin now? And you're not driving the same volume of top line. And so it's a really cool way to play around with that. So if you lack all of the measurement capabilities, you don't have a fancy tool for analytics, or you can't do a media mix model or a conversion lift study. What you do have and you can do right now is go build yourself a profit and loss statement, tally everything up, and look at it over the rolling last 6 to 12 months and just see how everything's changed, right? What happened when you started charging for shipping? The immediate impact that we have is, oh my gosh, conversion rates dropped. We're down in terms of sales. But are you more profitable? Are you actually putting more money in the bank now than before, even though you have less top line? And so it's a really great exercise. And that's how we're thinking about it. And that's honestly like what is allowed us to grow so much is we are just a profitable business. Top line is great. It makes us feel good. We pat ourselves in the back, but that's not what pays and allows us to take home a salary at the end of the day. So we're very much focused on profitability, and everything that we do is geared towards profitability and that bottom line.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I like about how you're thinking about this is you're using two different approaches at the same time. And again, this sort of like ties into how you do the measurement, which is one, you're just taking the holistic numbers and saying, I'm seeing my spend levels change and I'm seeing the impact on the PNL, which is why, probably all these guys like Jay and Taylor and all these people are talking about like why you need to become finance aware. It's because as signal continues to reduce on like hyper granular measurement, like actually where you go to is your PNL in order to make real marketing decisions, right? It's like, okay, if I increase investment here, I can actually see that it's having an impact on like a gross PNL level. And you can actually drive real marketing decisions based on that PNL awareness, and vice versa. Your measurement info can help you prioritize and deprioritize how you're making those spend decisions. Like you were literally just talking about at the beginning of this session, like you did a straight A/B test on shops versus shops and website, and it's like you're allocating $27K a day of investment into that channel, and it's like, guess what? I did the measurement. I understand where things are netting out. I understand the impact of the business, and I can just continue to invest in that channel. Yeah. Other people on Twitter have like turned it off, right? Because the impact to their business, the impact to the website sessions, the measurement on the website, all of those things got so out of whack that they just had to, they had to stop, right? And I think it's going to impact different businesses differently, which is where like, these stories sort of come together, and it's super important to use the inputs, but to make the decision based on your business, right? Like how it's impacting you guys is going to be different than how it's impacting somebody else, and just getting those inputs in correctly is the key. It's what it's starting to feel like. I mean, not to mention every week it's changing. So, but yeah, man, I think it's been a wild week yet again. This is a good jam. I think that wraps it for today. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're all set. We'll definitely be on the lookout for more topics and hot takes to speak about next week. And if you are a marketer and you're not sure of what to do to bring down CAC, maybe you can bring down CAC, but maybe you can take a look at that PNL, go through that exercise and see where you can increase that margin a little bit, right? Maybe you discount less, or you charge for shipping, or charge for half of the shipping at least. All of those are going to be bigger swings and bigger impacts right away. Like they could be an impact right now if you go make that change, than trying to figure out a way to bring down CAC. There's no fancy split test or activation or certain creative. You can come across those things, but a lot of times it goes back to that point of just being financially aware. So anyway, we always like to have takeaways, some sort of like takeaway that you can go and action off of. I'd say that was today's takeaway is go look at your P&L and take a look at where you're losing money. Where's the leaky bucket? And think of some creative solutions to patch that bucket up.
All right. See you all next time.